My daughter-in-law blocked me. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't respond when I left messages. One day, I went to her house with a small box of books for my grandkids, and her tone changed the moment I stepped onto the porch. "It's not a good time, Ida," she said flatly, not making eye contact. Behind her, I could hear the kids laughing. I asked if I could at least hand them the books. She gave me a look I won't forget, like I was someone untrustworthy, even dangerous, and told me to leave them by the door. Then she closed it before I could speak. A few days later, I realized she had unfriended me on Facebook and blocked me on her phone. Ethan, my son, didn't say a word about it. When I asked him if something had happened, he gave a half-hearted, "Lacey's just stressed lately," and changed the subject. That was 6 months ago. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. What I didn't know at the time was that she had been planting a very specific version of me in people's minds. At church, I overheard someone say, "Well, if my mother-in-law treated me the way she treated Lacey, I wouldn't talk to her either." Another person nodded, whispered, "I heard she told Lacey she was never good enough for Ethan." It stopped, me cold. I never said that, not once. I had welcomed Lacey the best way I knew how. I helped pay their rent when they were starting out. I bought her groceries the first time she lost her job. I kept my mouth shut when she picked a wedding dress that looked more like a club outfit than a bridal gown, and I still smiled in every photo like it was the happiest day of my life. And now, I was the villain? I went home that day and sat on the edge of my bed for over an hour. My phone buzzed with one of those automated texts from the pharmacy, reminding me about a refill. I stared at it and thought, there are people who will believe I'm a bitter old woman who ruined her son's marriage. And I haven't said a word. That night, I pulled out a plastic bin from the closet. It held years of things: bank statements, cards, receipts, handwritten letters. I dug until I found the one I remembered, a note from Lacey, written 2 months before their wedding. "Ida," it said, "I don't know how to thank you. You've been the mother I never had. I mean that." I remember the day she gave it. To me. We were in the kitchen making lemon bars together. She was crying because her mother didn't want to attend the wedding. She said Ethan isn't stable enough, Lacey had told me, her eyes puffy. I told her not to worry about that. That family is what we choose, not what we're given. And I meant it. I had been silent for too long. But not anymore. Lacey had built an image of herself as some sort of survivor. On social media, she called herself a cycle breaker, said she came from trauma, and implied, without ever naming names, that I was part of the problem. She gained followers from it. People praised her for protecting her peace and cutting out toxic family members. She had everyone convinced. I didn't fight back because I didn't want to embarrass my son. But something shifted when I found that note. I started to wonder, what happens if I never correct the record? What if my grandchildren grow up thinking, I was cruel? What if I die and that's the version that sticks? I didn't want revenge. I didn't want attention. I just wanted the truth to be known, somewhere, by someone. So I began collecting. Quietly. I printed old emails Lacey had sent, asking for money during their first year of marriage. I found the transfer receipts. I dug up the photos from our trip to Asheville, the one where she posted family healing on Instagram, without mentioning that I had paid for the Airbnb and driven the entire way because she didn't want to pay for gas. I didn't do these things to shame her. I did them because one day someone might need to know the truth. Maybe Ethan, maybe the kids. Maybe even Lacey herself, if she ever forgot how it really happened. The turning point came in a way I didn't expect. A young woman named Hannah, who worked at the same company as Lacey, reached out to me through a private message. "Hi, Mrs. Davis," she wrote. "I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I just wanted to say I've always admired how kind you were when I saw you at Lacey's office events. I've heard a lot of things lately, and honestly, it doesn't sound like the woman I met. I just thought you should know." I stared at that message for a long time. Not everyone believed Lacey, at least one person remembered, so I replied, "Thank you. I hope someday the truth has room to breathe." Lacey was smart. She never said anything directly. No post said, "Ida is abusive." No video ever named me. It was always a family member or someone I had to block for my own good. But the implications were clear, and the people who wanted to believe her did. Ethan stayed quiet. Too quiet. I started to think maybe he believed her too. But then, 2 months ago, he showed up at my house without warning. "I'm just here to check on you," he said, standing awkwardly in the kitchen. "Lacey said you were spiraling." I nearly dropped the mug I was holding. "Spiraling?" I repeated. "Yeah. She said you'd been calling too much, that you were crossing boundaries." "I haven't called you in 3 weeks," I said calmly, and the last text I sent was a birthday message for Ella. He shifted his weight, looked at the floor. "I know. That's why I came. I started going through things. Old photos, emails. I remembered how things used to be." I didn't say anything. I didn't want to give him the speech I had rehearsed in my head for the past year. I just waited. He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. It was from one of Lacey's Instagram stories, a post where she talked about a toxic mother-in-law who always made her feel unwanted, even on her wedding day. Then he pulled up the photo from that same day, me and Lacey, arms around each other, laughing. "She told me you were cold, that you didn't even speak to her. And that picture? She said it was staged." I didn't argue. I just walked to the closet and came back with the note, the one Lacey wrote before the wedding. Ethan read it in silence. He sat down, hard in the chair. "Mom, why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because I didn't want to put you in the middle. You've been alone in this." "I'm used to being alone," I said. "But I don't want the kids growing up with lies." Ethan nodded slowly. "I'm going to fix this." I didn't ask how. I didn't ask when. I just looked at my son, really looked at him. And for the first time in years, I saw the boy who used to defend me on the playground when other kids made fun of my gray hair. The boy who once said I was the smartest woman he knew. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know what Ethan was planning to do. But I knew one thing. He had finally opened his eyes. And maybe that was enough. Ethan didn't call for the next 3 days after our conversation in the kitchen. I didn't push it. I didn't text. I didn't ask what he meant when he said, "I'm going to fix this." I've learned not to interfere when he's sorting through something. He's the kind of man who needs silence to think. He always was. On the 4th day, a Saturday, he showed up again. This time, he didn't come alone. The car pulled into my driveway a little after noon. I watched from the front window as Ethan stepped out from the driver's side and walked around to open the passenger door. My heart skipped, not from fear, but from the tension of possibility. For a split second, I thought maybe he had brought the kids, but it wasn't them. It was Lacey. She stepped out wearing a light jacket, her hair pulled back into a clean ponytail. No makeup, no performance. She didn't look angry. But she didn't look particularly pleased to be there either. Ethan glanced toward the house and then back to her. She hesitated. He said something I couldn't hear, and then she finally moved toward the door. I opened it before they could knock. "Hi," Ethan said first. Lacey nodded. "Ida?" I stepped aside. "Come in." They sat on the same couch they sat on during the early years of their marriage, the same couch where she once cried because she couldn't find work, where I once placed a blanket over her while she napped. With Ella on her chest. Ethan didn't waste time. He looked straight at me and said, "She has something to say." Lacey shifted in her seat. She crossed one leg over the other, then uncrossed it. Her hands were clasped together tightly. "I've been thinking," she started, "about the past, about the stories I've shared with people." "Stories?" I repeated. She glanced at Ethan, who gave her a small, steady nod. "I've said things about you, to friends, online." "That weren't entirely fair," she continued. I stayed quiet. "They were exaggerated," she added. "I was hurting, and I think I needed someone to blame." "You needed someone to blame, so you chose me?" I asked calmly. She flinched. "I didn't mean for it to go as far as it did. I didn't expect so many people to follow me, or to take my side without question." "But they did," Ethan said, his tone flat. "They did take your side, because you kept feeding them the same version of my mother." I looked at her, and something became very clear. She wasn't here out of guilt. She was here because Ethan had pushed for it. She might have agreed to come, but this wasn't her idea. "Lacey," I said carefully, "do you believe I ever mistreated you?" She hesitated. "I think there were times when we didn't understand each other. That's not the question." She bit her lip. "No, you never mistreated me." "And do you believe that what you said about me, implying I was abusive, toxic, cold, was honest?" "No, not completely." I nodded. "I didn't ask for an apology," I said. "But I won't pretend that this didn't hurt me. I've missed birthdays, holidays, years with my grandchildren, because you told a version of me that wasn't real." She looked down at her lap. "I have the messages," I added. "I kept them. The ones where you thanked me for helping with rent. The ones where you said I was like a mother to you." Her eyes widened slightly. "You kept those?" "Yes, I kept all of them." Ethan leaned forward. "We both know what happened, Lacey. It's time to stop pretending." There was a pause that felt like it stretched for minutes. Finally, Lacey exhaled. "I didn't think you would say anything. You never fought back." "I didn't," I said, "because I thought I was protecting Ethan and the children." She looked at me then. Really looked. "And now?" "Now I'm protecting myself." Ethan stood up. "I told her I'm not going to keep quiet anymore. If she wants to keep painting this picture, she can do it without me." Lacey's jaw tightened. "So what? You're just going to— what? Make a post explaining everything? Embarrass me in front of everyone?" "No," he said. "But I'm going to stop pretending." The room fell into silence. "I can't undo what I've said," she whispered, "but I can stop making it worse." I nodded again. "That would be a start." She stood too. "I'll go." As she moved toward the door, she turned back. "I don't know if we'll ever be close again, but I didn't mean for it to turn into this." I really didn't. I didn't say anything. Neither did Ethan. After the door closed, Ethan turned back to me. "I know it's not enough, but I didn't want to wait any longer." "You did the right thing," I said. He looked around the "Feels weird being back here." "You used to live here?" I reminded him. "You'd come back from college, sit right there, and tell me about the people you were dating." He smiled faintly. "You always said I had terrible taste." "I did." We both laughed. Then he asked, more serious now, "Do you want to see the kids?" My throat caught. "Yes, of course." "I'll bring them tomorrow," he said. "Lacey's going to stay with a friend for a few days. I need space to think." I didn't ask questions. I didn't press. I just said, "I'll bake something." He gave me a half smile. "I think they'd like that." When he left, I sat alone in the living room. I looked around at the framed photos on the shelves. Some of them had Lacey in them. I didn't remove them. I didn't flip them down. Later that night, I opened a drawer in my bedroom and took out the folder I had filled over the months. Emails, screenshots, handwritten notes. I stared at the contents, then slowly began sealing them into a new envelope. I labeled it, just in case. I wasn't planning to use it. But I wasn't going to let anyone rewrite me again either. Tomorrow, I would bake. I'd clean the guest room in case Ethan needed it. I'd take out the box of toys I had kept, even after it became clear they wouldn't be coming around anymore. And I would wait. I had no interest in public revenge, but I wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. The silence that protected everyone else had cost me too much. Sunday morning, I woke up at 6:15 without needing an alarm. I had barely slept, but my body didn't feel tired. I got out of bed, tied my robe, and went straight to the kitchen. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't check my phone. I didn't open the windows. I needed quiet, not to think, but just to stay grounded. I laid out the flour, sugar, eggs, and butter on the counter. I hadn't baked for anyone in almost 2 years. Not since the last birthday party for Ella that I was invited to. I still remembered how Lacey had looked at me sideways when I brought a homemade cake. She smiled through her teeth and said, "Oh, that's sweet, but I already ordered one from that bakery in town." That day, I left the cake in the kitchen and pretended it didn't sting. But today, I wasn't baking to impress anyone. I was baking because my grandchildren were coming, and I didn't want them to feel a moment of awkwardness the second they stepped through my door. I made chocolate chip cookies first, Ella's favorite. Then I started a pan of baked macaroni with breadcrumbs on top. Jack always asked for extra cheese. I sliced carrots, poured apple juice into the small cups I kept in the back cabinet, and took the kids' plates down from the higher shelf. At 11:02, I heard the car. I wiped my hands and looked out the window. Ethan stepped out first. Then came Ella, wearing a pink hoodie and carrying a small backpack. Jack followed, one shoe already untied, his eyes scanning the porch like he was unsure they were at the right place. I opened the door before Ethan could knock. Ella stopped short when she saw me. Jack, too. Their faces didn't light up, but they didn't look afraid either. They just looked unsure, like they were trying to remember the last time they had been here. "Hi, babies," I said, my voice quiet. Ella glanced at her father. "Are we going inside?" "Yes," Ethan said gently. "Grandma made lunch." Jack looked up at me. "Mac and cheese?" I smiled. "With extra cheese? And cookies?" He nodded once, serious, and walked in. Ella hesitated, then followed. Ethan came in last and closed the door behind him. The living room was quiet except for the sound of Jack unzipping his backpack and dropping it by the armchair. Ella stood in the doorway between the hallway and the kitchen, taking everything in. Nothing had changed, but I realized to them, it probably felt completely different. I gestured toward the table. "Come sit, I'll bring the food." Ethan helped Jack with his shoes while Ella walked slowly into the kitchen. She stopped near the oven and sniffed. "It smells the same," she said, almost to herself. "I hope that's a good thing," I said. She looked at me for the first time since walking in. Her eyes didn't hold judgment, just distance. "Can I have 2 cookies?" she asked. "Of course." They sat at the table and started eating without fuss. Jack didn't talk much, but he cleaned his plate. Ella asked if I still had the little pink chair from when she was little. I said yes. It was in the basement, but I could get it later. After lunch, I brought out a plastic tub filled with old toys. Puzzles, coloring books, wooden blocks, small cars, things they had outgrown in theory, but not in feeling. Jack pulled out the racetrack. "You still have this?" "You loved it," I said. "You used to set it up in the hallway." He smiled for the first time that day. A small one, but real. I let them play while I washed the dishes. Ethan stood at the sink drying, neither of us speaking until I turned off the water. "I'm sorry I let it get this far," he said. I didn't respond right away. "She made everything sound so believable," he added. "Even when I had doubts, I figured it was better not to stir things up." "She's your wife," I said. "I understand loyalty." He paused. "I think I confused loyalty with fear." I looked at him. "And now?" "Now, I'm not afraid. Anymore." We didn't talk much after that. The kids asked if they could stay longer, and Ethan said yes. Around 3:00, I brought out some photo albums. I had picked them carefully, only happy moments. Birthdays, Christmases, lazy summer afternoons in the backyard. No tension, no awkward faces. Just family. Ella sat beside me on the couch and opened one. She pointed at a photo. "That's me. At the zoo." "You were 3, I said. "You insisted on wearing butterfly wings the whole day." She smiled, then flipped the page. A few pages later, she paused again. "Why don't we come here anymore?" she asked. Ethan was still in the kitchen. Jack was lying on the rug playing with blocks. I looked at her carefully. "That's a hard question." She looked up. "Did you do something bad?" "No, sweetie, I didn't." "Then why did Mommy say—" She stopped. "What did Mommy say?" She hesitated. "She said you didn't like her." I nodded slowly. "I did like her. I helped her a lot when she and your daddy were starting out." "Then why did she say you didn't?" "Sometimes," I said carefully, "people say things that help them feel better when they're upset, but those things aren't always true." She frowned. "So, is Mommy lying?" "I think Mommy was hurt about something," I said, and maybe she remembered it differently. Ella was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I like it here." I touched her hair gently. "I'm glad." Ethan returned to the living room and looked at me. "I'll bring them again next weekend," he said. I nodded. He helped them pack up, and I gave each of them a small bag of cookies to take home. As they walked to the door, Ella turned back. "Can I take the album next time?" she asked. "Yes. You can take 2 if you want." When the car pulled away, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I felt something shift, but it wasn't sadness. It was relief. The door wasn't open all the way yet, but it wasn't shut anymore either. The silence that had filled my house for 2 years wasn't gone, but it had changed shape. It no longer felt like punishment. It felt like space. And in that space, maybe the truth would finally grow. Ethan brought the kids again the next weekend, just like he said he would. This time they ran into the house without hesitation. Jack went straight for the toy box, pulling out a tangle of plastic, racetrack pieces, and immediately asking if we could build it in the hallway. Ella hugged me around the waist, then asked if I remembered the cherry pie I used to make. I told her I still had the same recipe card in my drawer. They stayed for almost 5 hours that day. Ethan didn't say much, but I could tell he was paying close attention to everything, how comfortable the kids felt, how familiar the house still was to them. After lunch, I caught him walking into the living room just to look at the old framed photo of his high school graduation. The one where I'm hugging him so tight his tassel got caught in my earring. He didn't say anything about it. He didn't need to. By the 3rd visit, the routine was starting to feel normal again. Ella asked if she could bring a school project to work on at my kitchen table. Jack drew a picture of a race car and wrote "Grandma's house" at the top. Ethan brought groceries without me asking. He restocked my fridge like it was instinct. No words, just quiet gestures. I noticed. But what I also noticed was that Lacey still hadn't reached out. Not to me, not to apologize, not to ask about the kids. Nothing. That changed 2 weeks later. It was a Thursday morning. I had just returned from my doctor's appointment and was putting away some laundry when the doorbell rang. I peeked through the peephole. Lacey. She stood on my porch wearing large sunglasses and a beige coat, holding a manila envelope in her hands. I paused for a second. Then I opened the door. She didn't say hello. "I just came to return something," she said, holding out the envelope. I took it. "What is it?" "Photos," she said. "Of the kids, from the past 2 years." I didn't open it. "Thank you." She hesitated. "They mentioned they missed you. I thought maybe you'd want to have them." "That's kind of you," I said. She stood there silently for another moment. Then, "They've been different lately." "How so?" "Ella doesn't tell me things the way she used to. Jack asks to come here more than he asks to go anywhere else." "They're just kids," I said. "They go where they feel safe." Her jaw clenched slightly. "I never made them feel unsafe." "I never said you did." Another long pause. "I heard what Ethan's been saying," she added. "I haven't asked him to say anything." "I know," she said quickly, "but he's changing how people see me." "No," I corrected her gently. "He's changing how people see me." She looked down, fiddling with the strap of her bag. "I never meant for things to go this far," she said. "You said that the last time." "This isn't about winning," she snapped suddenly, her voice louder than she intended. Then she stepped back, composing herself. "I just don't want everything I've built to fall apart over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I repeated, calm. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. "I thought you'd fight me back when all of this started. I thought if you said something rude or made a scene, people would believe me more easily. But I didn't," I said. "I stayed quiet." "That's what made it worse," she admitted. The silence made people assume it was true. I nodded. "And now?" "Now." I'm realizing it was a mistake. I kept my eyes on her. I didn't flinch. I didn't rush to fill the space. She shifted again. "Do you want to fix things?" "No," I said. "I want the truth to exist without needing my permission." She blinked. "I want the kids to feel free to love who they want without hearing whispers or picking up tension in every room they walk into. I want Ethan to not have to choose sides. I want peace." She stared at me. "But that peace won't come from pretending this didn't happen," I added. "You told a story that wasn't real. You shaped a version of me to suit your own needs. And now the version is falling apart." She looked down again. "I didn't mean to make you the villain, but you did." Silence again. "I'll leave," she said finally and turned toward the steps. "Lacey," I said before she got too far. She stopped. "You don't owe me anything, but your children do deserve the truth someday. Whether you tell it or not is your choice." She didn't turn around, just nodded once and walked back to her car. That night, I sat on the couch and opened the envelope. The photos were good ones: Halloween costumes, school plays, first bike rides, moments I had missed. I looked through them carefully, page by page, until I got to the very last one. A picture of Ella holding a sign that said 100 days of school, with little macaroni pieces glued around the edges. In the corner, I noticed a handwritten caption: "Crafted with love by Mom." That wasn't true. I knew that project. I had mailed her the craft materials and instructions after Ella called me crying because her mom didn't have time to help. It hit me harder than I expected. She couldn't even give me that? Not even a footnote? I placed the photo in a separate folder marked Ella Projects and slid the rest back into the envelope. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. But something inside me solidified that night. I no longer needed to prove anything to Lacey. But I needed to be ready for the day Ella or Jack asked for their own version of the truth. Because they would. People grow up, stories lose their shape, and kids start asking questions, All I had to do was wait, and I could do that. 3 days after Lacey showed up with that envelope, I got a call from a woman named Denise. I hadn't heard from her in years. She used to work with Lacey back when she was still building her brand around being a self-made mother and speaker. Denise wasn't close to our family, but she had been around enough to know what things looked like behind the scenes. "I hope this isn't a bad time," she said, her tone cautious. "No, go ahead. I just wanted to give you a heads up. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but one of Lacey's older posts is making rounds again. The one about her in-laws. People are starting to question it." I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. "Question how?" I asked. "Well, someone asked for more details in the comments, and when Lacey didn't respond, other followers started sharing different experiences. One even said they worked with her and that her story didn't line up with what they saw." I didn't ask, "Who said what?" I didn't even ask for a link. I just said, "Thank you for telling me." "I always knew you weren't the monster she made you out to be," Denise added quietly before hanging up. I didn't go looking for the post. I didn't need to. By Friday, Ethan came over with the kids and sat me down before they even took their jackets off. "She's spiraling," he said. Flat Ella and Jack were in the living room already pulling out toys. I poured us coffee and waited. "She's been calling people, trying to get them to defend her online," he continued. "But most of them have stopped responding." I nodded once. It was bound to happen. "She thinks I'm behind it. That I'm feeding people stories. Are you?" "No," he said. "But I'm also not covering for her anymore." He sipped from the mug and looked around the room. "She's worried she's going to lose everything she's built." Didn't reply. After a moment, he added, "She's starting to ask if she can come with us next time we visit." My stomach tightened slightly. "That's your decision. But I'm not going to pretend nothing happened." "I know. I told her that." There was a long silence. "What about the kids?" I asked. He rubbed his forehead. "Ella's asking questions. That got my full attention. She saw a comment on one of Lacey's videos. Someone said, 'I thought you didn't talk to your in-laws,' and Ella asked what they meant." "What did Lacey say?" She brushed it off. But Ella didn't buy it. Then she asked me if you used to come to her school recitals because she couldn't remember. I told her yes. I showed her a photo. She didn't say much, but she's putting it together. I breathed in slowly. "She'll figure out more on her own." "She already is," Ethan said. "And Jack, he started asking me why you weren't at his 5th birthday. I didn't even realize he remembered. Children remember more than we give them credit for. They may not always remember the exact words, but they remember how things felt. Who was there? Who wasn't?" That evening, when they were getting ready to leave, Ella hugged me tight and whispered, "Are you coming to my next play at school?" I hesitated. "If I'm invited." She pulled back and looked confused. "Why wouldn't you be?" Ethan stood behind her, watching carefully. I looked at him and he nodded once. "I'll be there," I told her. She smiled, satisfied. 2 days later, I received the official invite. From Ella. She had written it herself on a folded piece of pink construction paper, complete with stickers and her wobbly handwriting. Inside it said, "To Grandma Ida, please come to my play. I will look for you." No RSVP from Lacey, no note from her. But the invitation wasn't from her anyway. It was the following Saturday that everything shifted. Ethan came by alone. He looked tired. He sat down at the table like someone preparing to deliver news. "She confronted me," he said. "Said she felt betrayed?" "Because you brought the kids here?" "No. Because I told Ella the truth when she asked where you were during her birthdays." "And what did you tell her?" "I said you were always invited until 1 year you weren't. I said sometimes adults make choices that hurt other people." I nodded. "That's enough." "She cried," he said. "Not because of you. because she said she didn't understand why Mommy would lie. And what did Lacey say? She accused me of trying to turn the kids against her. Said I've been building a case to make her look bad. Said I'm choosing a narrative over my own wife. And what did you say? I told her that if she didn't want consequences, she should have told the truth in the first place. There it was. Ethan wasn't covering for her anymore. She said she wants to come next week, that she wants to try and make peace. I leaned back in my chair. If she comes here, Ethan, I won't lie to your children, and I won't sit through another performance. I'm not asking you to. She's coming because her story is falling apart, I said. She doesn't want peace. She wants control again. He rubbed his eyes. I think she doesn't know the difference anymore. We were both quiet. Then he said something I didn't expect. She told me she feels like a stranger in her own life now. That the person she pretended to be got more love than the person she actually is. That's what happens when you build your house on a version of the truth instead of the truth itself. He nodded slowly. She asked me why I don't defend her anymore. I told her, because now I finally see everything I didn't want to. He looked tired, but clear. That week, I went to Ella's school play. I sat in the second row. I saw the way she kept scanning the audience until she found me. She waved. I waved back. Lacey wasn't there. After the play, Ella ran into my arms. Jack handed me a cookie from the refreshment table and said, I saved the best one for you. Ethan stood beside me quietly. I didn't say anything about Lacey. Neither did he. But we both knew. This was the moment the truth stopped being quiet. Not because I shouted it, but because it started to speak for itself. It was a Sunday morning when Lacey showed up again. No warning, no message. Just the sound of tires on the gravel and the knock on my door at 9:15 a.m. This time I didn't hesitate to answer. I had been expecting it. In a way. Not the exact day or time, but I knew it would come eventually. The silence between us had lasted too long, and now that her version of events was falling apart, she needed a new chapter. One she could control. She stood on the porch, holding a coffee in one hand and a small notebook in the other. No sunglasses, no envelope. Just her. I'd like to talk, she said. I'm listening, I replied, holding the door halfway open but not stepping aside. Can I come in? I kept my hand on the door. Is it about the kids? No. It's about us. I considered her for a moment. She looked tired, like someone who had rehearsed what she wanted to say too many times. I stepped back. She came in, sat down on the same couch where Ethan had confronted her weeks ago, and waited for me to sit across from her. I want to fix this, she said. I didn't respond. I've been thinking about how things got to this point. I think a lot of it started with misunderstandings that I never clarified. Misunderstandings you created? I said. She shifted. Okay. Yes. Some of that is on me. I said nothing. I was young. Insecure. When Ethan and I got married, I felt like I wasn't good enough for your family. I thought you judged me, even when you didn't say anything. You're right. I didn't say anything. Because I wanted you to feel welcome in your own way. Well, I didn't feel welcome, she snapped, before catching herself. I mean, maybe that's not fair, but it's how I felt. I can't control how you felt, but I also won't accept blame for things I didn't do. She nodded slowly. I made it easy for people to believe a version of the story that made me the victim, and I didn't correct it. Not once. And in doing so, you made me the villain. Yes, she whispered. The word hung in the air between us. Ethan said you want to make peace, I said. What does that mean? I want to move forward. I want to come back to a place where the kids don't feel like they're in the middle. I want them to have both of us. They already do, I said. What they don't have is a clear sense of what's real and what's not. And that's not my doing. I never imagined it would go this far. But it did. She fidgeted with the notebook on her lap, finally sliding it across the table toward me. What is this? I asked. A letter. Something I was thinking of posting. To clear the air, just so people stop asking questions. I picked it up, opened it, and scanned the first few lines. It was polished, neutral, carefully worded to avoid blame. It didn't name me, but it didn't correct anything either. It spoke in vague terms about growth, healing, and learning from the past. There wasn't one sentence that told the truth. Not really. I closed it and handed it back. That's not peace, I said. That's strategy. She looked up. Then what do you want from me? Nothing, I said. Not anymore. Her expression froze. I'm not looking for a confession. I'm not chasing an apology. I've accepted that what you built was never about me. It was about what you wanted people to see. And now that people are seeing you for who you really are, you're uncomfortable. That's not my responsibility to fix. I thought you'd be more understanding. I was, I said. For years. I stayed silent. I stepped back. I let you tell your version while I disappeared from my own grandchildren's lives. That was understanding. This, I gestured to the space between us. This is clarity. She stood up slowly. So that's it? No, that's not it. There's one more thing. She paused. If Ella or Jack ever ask me what happened, I will tell them the truth. Not to hurt you, not to get back at you, but because they deserve to know. Lacey swallowed hard. You'd really do that? Yes. She nodded. She didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me otherwise. I guess I deserve that, she said softly. Then she walked to the door. When she reached it, she turned. For what it's worth, I'm sorry I let it get this far. For what it's worth, I hope you mean that. She didn't say anything else. Just left. That afternoon, Ethan brought the kids again. They were laughing before they even made it up the steps. Jack had drawn a new picture. This one of my house with Grandma's home written in big letters above the roof. Ella ran straight to the kitchen and asked if I had made the cherry pie again. I had. Ethan didn't say anything about Lacey's visit until the kids were out of earshot. He sat on the edge of the couch and looked over at me. She told me you didn't accept the letter. I didn't. He nodded. She won't admit it. But it shook her. She needed to be shaken. He didn't argue. I want to make something clear, I said. She's still their mother. I'll never speak poorly of her to them. But if they ask me for the truth, I won't lie. Fair, he said. Then he looked around, smiling softly. They feel different here. Lighter, like they're not walking on eggshells. That's because they're not. After they left, that night I sat down in the living room and took out the envelope labeled "Just in Case." I opened it, added the printed version of Lacey's letter, and sealed it again. I didn't know if I'd ever need to use it, but I knew now that I was no longer afraid of being misunderstood. Her version of me no longer controlled my life. She built her image on a lie I never confirmed, but I also never fed it, and now it was collapsing under its own weight, not because I pushed it, but because it was never real to begin with, and in the quiet that followed, I finally heard myself again. I didn't need to reclaim my reputation. I just needed to stop giving it away.